Okay, welcome then to this session on searching CINAHL MEDLINE on EBSCOhost for beginners. So this 60-minute webinar is really for library staff. I think all of those attending today are from the library service. We'll review the basic search options essentially for CINAHL MEDLINE using the clinical model PICO for searching. So I'll say more about PICO as we go through this. So that's a common framework for searching for clinical healthcare-related search questions. So we're going to look at that on the native EBSCOhost interface. So I hate that this is a beginner session, so we'll cover some basics at the start. So I'm Richard Crooks. I work for Customer Training Services at EBSCO. I'm a Senior Manager of Training Services. I cover the UK and Ireland for the medical sector, and I'm also a Chartered Librarian. So I worked in the NHS for about 12 years as a librarian, 14 years in total, and I spent the last 10 years working at EBSCO as a trainer, essentially. So in terms of any interaction, obviously we can take some questions at the end. If you have any comments or questions during the course of the webinar, by all means send them through in the chat panel. I've already been speaking to one of you at least on the chat panel. So if you're not using a microphone, this is particularly useful. If you are using a microphone, of course, I can take questions as they occur, but again, we can reserve some time for that. But by all means, use the chat panel on the right side of your screen to raise anything that you want to discuss at the time. You may also notice there's an audio option there as well on the top left. So if you have problems with audio during the course of the WebEx, go to the audio link and follow the audio conference link, and you can check your settings, etc. there. Okay, but keep me informed if there's any issues, and also if you need me to slow down or even speed up. Okay, so what I wanted to cover then essentially is to go through these. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to access CINAHL on the EBSCOhost interface. So there are a number of ways to do that. I'll show you one particular way, but of course, the PowerPoints also cover other options as well for you. But I won't go through all of those options. And of course, at Medway, for example, you may be directing users to a particular link on a particular website. So again, it may differ somewhat, but I'll take this from the perspective of nationally. If you're to access CINAHL nationally, then there's a way of doing that. We'll look at the PICO framework for search questions. Before I get into that, I'll also talk some of the basic search functionality of CINAHL on EBSCOhost. And then we'll look at refining search results using available limiters to filter searches to be more focused, etc. And then we'll look, of course, at the process of saving articles and searches for future access. So I won't cover all the features that are available to you. Some of this will be covered in the advanced session, which is due to take place in a couple of weeks. But I will direct you to where you can find further support information, and that includes online tutorials, user guides, etc., as well as promotional materials as you want to raise awareness of this service or share with colleagues, etc. So I hope that's what you're expecting from this session today. And obviously, feel free to send through comments or questions as they arise. So the first thing is just to point out the availability of CINAHL and the version that you're using. So nationally, in England, CINAHL is the standard database. Some have upgraded to higher-end versions, such as CINAHL Plus, CINAHL Complete. It may be regional or local, but you see a comparison there of the kind of content that you have access to. So you have the journals index, almost 5,500. You have pre-CINAHL indexed or in-process records being added, and you have a quantity of full-text journals. So there are 70 current full-text journals indexed in the basic CINAHL version, which contrasts, of course, with the 1,300 or so with CINAHL Complete. So that just gives you a snapshot of the specific version of CINAHL that we're looking at. And I'd add also that the steps that we're looking at today, the features, although the content may differ, the functionality as far as searching goes will be the same whichever version that you have access to. Okay, so it goes without saying, we're looking at CINAHL on EBSCOhost, and the search features, etc., are the same. The big difference will be the content coverage, etc. So what I'm going to do here now is just take you through some steps in terms of access. As I said, I've got them in the PowerPoint, so you've got that to refer back to later. But essentially, if you're going to get access nationally, then I'm going to just switch to my screen here. You'll see I come to the NICE website here, nice.org.uk, and I've accessed the journals and databases page. So if you scroll down here, and obviously this may be updated in time, with the discontinuation of HDAS and the need for access to the native EBSCOhost interface, etc. So at the moment, you can send in more information. We have a link to log into Open Athens. So you click on that link, and of course, with your username and password, you can enter on the login page here. Of course, for those who don't have an account, there's a registration link there. So you can log in once you've signed in there. This will then take you to the My Resources page, and you can see these are alphabetically listed, and you can see EBSCO's database is listed here. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the following page. Okay, and here you'll see the listing of currently available databases that are available nationally in England. Of course, locally you may have additional resources as well. So, of course, the key three databases that are available are CINAHL, which we're looking at today, alongside MEDLINE, and also Psychology and Behavioral Science Collection. So they're all using the EBSCOhost interface. Okay. If you want more detailed information about the database, then you can click on the More Information link here, and you can see here we've got CINAHL-specific information. So you've got information on search tips, for example, and also details about searchable fields. Now, one of the things about searchable fields, I don't want to get into the tags so much today because that's really for the advanced session, but I want to highlight the point here about the default fields for unqualified searching. So an unqualified search is simply where you enter your search terms to retrieve records based on the search terms that you enter. So essentially a free text or keyword search. And when you enter those terms on the EBSCOhost interface for CINAHL, you're actually searching for terms within these fields. So title, the abstract of the article, and also the subject headings. So CINAHL subject headings are provided by the National Library of Medicine. We'll touch on those briefly today, but your keywords so records will be retrieved if they appear in any one of those fields. Now, there may be some occurrences where you'll retrieve records that you may wonder, why on earth did they disappear? There's nothing I can see. Normally, when the terms are entered in the results list, the terms are highlighted in bold. So if they're not, and you wonder why that result appeared, it may be because there's some hidden metadata. Okay, so there are rare occurrences where that may take place. But otherwise, results are appearing based on your free text search terms appearing in the title, abstract, or subheadings. Now, if you do more advanced searching, then you can specify certain fields, such as the actual subject index term, the abstract, other field codes, geography, etc. So I don't want to spend too much time on this page, but just to highlight that this is available. Also, you'll find here we've got the generic EBSCOhost interface instructions here. So for advanced search guided style, which is the page we're going to come to in a moment, there are instructions for using this particular interface. Okay. Also for limiting your search results, as we'll do in a moment. Again, some instructions about various limiters or filters that are available on the native interface. Okay. So that's just the more information link. Also, you'll find if you go to MEDLINE, for example, there's a title list, so it'll give you a list, a native list of the publications indexed within the database. Okay, so you can browse those alphabetically, or you can browse using your search terms here for specific titles or by subject, or match any words in the title, etc. Okay, so we're going to just look at searching now on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to switch to your own version currently. So if this is okay, I'm going to use the Medway setup. So you can see here we've got the search box there, the multiple rows there for searching. So this is what we call our advanced search page. Okay, so this allows us to perform both basic and basic free text searching, as well as more advanced searches, again, which we'll cover in the other session. So what we can also do here with this Choose Databases page link, we can actually search more than one database simultaneously. So we can select CINAHL and we select MEDLINE and then click OK. So with that Choose Databases link, it allows us to open up the dialog box and choose more than one database. So if you click Show All now here, you can see we can search both databases. So we're going to run a sample search, but I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint for that. So that's just to set us up for the searching, do the live demo. So just to cover a couple of things before we start the search live. So I'll skip some of these slides that I've got there for reference. So just a reminder, again, as far as unqualified searching. I showed you that in CINAHL. Likewise, if you go to the MEDLINE more information link, it will show you that these are the default fields for an unqualified search. So if you're searching MEDLINE, when you enter your keyword, your free text search, it's going to look for those terms within any of those fields. Okay, so there are a few, there are obviously a good number of fields there that it's actually searching. So again, explain the reason why results are achieved in the way they do. So if your terms appear in any of those fields, they will be retrieved in the results list. Another factor to consider is if you are cross-searching, as I'm about to do, there will be the automatic deduplication of results as well. So EBSCOhost does this automatically. So it's basically based on comparing the citation metadata. So if the title, author, data published, ISSN, the journal name, ISSN, book number, if they are the same for both records, then you'll be left with a unique record. Okay. So again, that's how that works. It works automatically. You don't need to select dedupe, for example. Whenever you cross-search, that's going to be working in the background. So if there are slight discrepancies in any of the fields, for example, with author, then obviously both records will remain. Okay, but overall, there's a deduplication that takes place automatically when you cross-search your databases. Also want to add as well, obviously cross-searching is where you're really looking more a general search, maybe a scoping search to see what's out there. Obviously for more in-depth searching, you're most likely to search the database individually. But again, we're looking at a basic level to begin with, and I know from my recent experience of training on CINAHL, this was a question that came up about cross-searching, about deduplication, etc. There is, of course, a reference there. There's a link there to our support pages about this. Again, just reiterating the point I'm making here. Okay. So again, if you've got any questions on any of these features or anything I've mentioned, if I need to repeat anything, please let me know in the chat panel, but we'll take some questions at the end as well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, my desktop. Okay, and you'll see we've got, again, the search here. So we're going to run a search, and then we're going to look at PICO as well, which means I should go back. I was right to go back to my PowerPoint because I need to talk to you about PICO as well. So there's a couple of things I want to highlight here regarding the PICO searching. So let me skip here. So for those who are not so familiar with PICO, it's basically a process, it's a technique used in evidence-based practice to frame and answer a clinical or healthcare-related question. So it's designed to support literature search strategies. It's a process for creating a literature search strategy. And you can see here it's an acronym for patient, population, intervention, comparison, or outcome. So that is what it stands for, to give you more detail. Essentially, when you have a P, you look at a particular population group. It could be an individual patient or a group of people. It could be related to age, gender, nationality, etc., race, or it could be the condition of the patient. If you look at smoking cessation, it would also be a smoker. It could be a diabetic, for example. The intervention is what is the action, intervention or treatment we are considering taking. So that could be drug therapy, could be diet therapy, could be surgery, for example. Then there's a comparison. So there might be two forms of treatments, or it could be two drug therapies. So again, you can compare two drugs, or it could be, if you look at consider smoking cessation, it could be the intervention could be acupuncture compared to nicotine replacement therapy, for example. And then there's the outcome. So what do we anticipate as an outcome? So this is all in relation to a clinical or healthcare related question. So it could be pain control, it could be quality of life, or it might be to help someone quit smoking, etc. So there are a number of options there. So these are the four elements that are available. Now, you may not use all four elements in your search strategy, depending on the nature of the question. So if we just go to an example here. So this is one example I wanted to use. How does the use of exercise compare to medication in treating depression in middle-aged women? So that's the question, if you like, the clinical question, the healthcare-related question. And I've highlighted the key terms there. So what I feel will be the terms that we need to search for on CINAHL, okay? So exercise, medication, depression in middle-aged women. I think most will probably agree with this. And again, we wouldn't just use those words alone. So the next slide I'm going to look at is a breakdown of those terms in terms of what terms could we enter into the database for these 4 elements. Now, not every PICO search includes all 4 elements. Typically, the population and intervention are the most common elements that you're going to focus on. There may not be a comparison or comparative treatment. You may be looking at one specific intervention, and the outcome could be implied as well. So we have, of course, a specific age group and gender, 45-year-old woman. We're looking at exercise, and obviously this person also is someone with depression, so that also is a big factor, okay? And then there's a comparison with medication, or in this case, antidepressant medication, and then the goal of this, of course, is to reduce or treat depression, okay? So I've outlined this framework, I've identified the 4 elements, and beneath on the second level there, I've highlighted the terms that we can use. And if you're wondering why some are lowercase, some are uppercase, basically to differentiate between free text terms, keyword terms that we could enter, as opposed to using the subject index terms. So the subject index terms derive from CINAHL subject headings or MESH medical subject headings for MEDLINE. So these are the terms that are used to identify what the subject is about. So I just want to, again, outline a bit more about that. If you're starting out using this kind of query, just to highlight, and this is going back to a really basic level, essentially. So if you compare and contrast the difference between free text and subject searching, then you are looking at a free text term search. You're looking at the exact match of the word you enter. So if you enter the word or phrase heart attack, that's what you'll get back. That's what you're looking for. Now on EBSCOhost, by the way, you can use quotation marks for exact phrases. Otherwise, heart attack will either be searched as heart and attack or heart attack, depending on what's been set up in the background. Now, I think in the NHS, this will still be treated as a phrase based on the configuration behind the scenes. So we have a tool called EBSCOadmin, which configures the search experience for the user. So that is something that we could talk about offline, but basically it's configured in a certain way to search in a certain way. So heart attack would simply be a free text search for those exact terms, okay? If you compare that with the subject searching, this is where you are using CINAHL subject headings, or in the case of MEDLINE, MESH medical subject headings from the National Library of Medicine. And in this example, just to point out to you, obviously myocardial infarction is used for heart attack. So heart attack may be a free text search, but the actual term used by professional indexers to identify articles about heart attack is myocardial infarction. Okay, so just wanted to highlight the distinction between the 2 types of searching that we will do in a moment. So either free text and subject searching, and invariably you would do both to make sure that you bring back the results you would expect, or as much as is out there at this time. Okay, so again, any questions on any of this, please do let me know. So I just want to highlight that for you. Okay, so let's go back to the desktop. So there's a couple of ways of searching. So we're going to explore 2 ways essentially using this particular framework. So if you think back to the example we were just talking about, the matter of depression, the contrast between, or the comparison of exercise versus antidepressant medication. So the first thing we're going to look at in this context is the condition of the patient, which is, of course, depression. So we're going to start off with the word depression, and I'm just going to highlight here 1 or 2 things. So we can enter a term here, and so the first thing I do is combine my search terms in a very simple way, in a basic way, run the search, and then we're going to look at another means of searching when we go back to CINAHL. So in this example, we're cross-searching CINAHL MEDLINE for records. So I can put in the word depression here. I can also use or to separate this. So depressive or depressed, for example. Okay. So I can use a variety of terms in the search box. I can use or to separate them, so I can find a match for depression, depressive, or depressed. Okay. There are other ways, shortcuts that we can explore, and I'll probably explore that in the advanced session. Of course, if you've got questions about that, I can take those shortly. But we're going to keep it quite simple to begin with here. So we've got our first term, which is actually the condition of this patient. We're going to use "and" to combine it. So we are looking at exercise, of course, and we may think of alternative expressions, for example, physical fitness or physical activity, etc. Okay, so I just entered some terms at random, essentially. I'm not going to use all the terms that I highlighted in the PowerPoint just to save time, but just to illustrate the functionality of searching on the EBSCOhost interface. And then the third area, of course, we can look at is the matter of antidepressant medication. So we can type in the terms here. So antidepressant or antidepressants, or we could put in, for example, antidepressant medication with the quotation marks. Okay, we can also add other terms like serotonin, so selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. In fact, let's just actually we'll do that for now. Let's go reuptake inhibitors. Okay, or SSRI. Okay, we'll just leave it for that for now. Okay, so I've got those three elements there. Now, obviously, the fourth element was in terms of reducing depression. So that essentially you could say is going to be implied when we look at this. The main thing, of course, is that we're comparing two types of treatment or therapy, etc., in relation to helping this patient. Another factor to consider, of course, is the age of the patient and also the gender. But that is something that we can factor into the search after we've run the initial search on these three elements. Okay, so again, we're taking PICO as our framework. We've come up with some search terms, and we're going to run it. Now, this is just using the free text search. I will show you how to use the index terms as well in a moment, but I want to start off quite basic at this time. So we can then run this search. Remember, it's also an unqualified search. So it's going to look for these terms as they appear within the title or subject or abstract, and obviously for Medline, additional fields as well. But we are running them across both databases. So we can click search here, and then you'll see the results below. Okay, so we've got the results appearing on my screen. We've got 1,300 records here. And if you want to know where the search history is, how we track what we've done so far, you can look to the left. The first column, it gives us the Boolean phrase, as it's called here, the search we've done. And if you click on search history, just above this, you will see we've got that recorded here. So let's combine those elements into one search string, and we have our results below. Okay. And then just to clarify in terms of the age and gender, if we want obviously to factor this into this particular search, then if you look to the first column, these are the limits where we can apply these filters to our search. And you'll see here we've got age. You can see we've got middle-aged here, so we go for this option. So I'm going to filter to the age group, and then below that we've also got gender as well. Okay, so 333 references. Okay, so we're now looking at articles which should be related to this search query. You'll also notice the default search here is by the most recent, which is quite common for healthcare to see the most recent research, articles, etc. But if you want something which is more relevant, then click on the link here, the drop-down arrow. You can also sort by the oldest articles or by source alphabetically, and then you can sort by relevance as well. So the relevancy ranking is based on the keywords as they appear in the subject index, and you can see we've got subject terms indicated in that line just below the abstract. Okay, so the subjects here are the CINAHL subject headings used to identify what the article is about, essentially. So you can see here we've got exercise mentioned, we've got antidepressive agents, depression therapy, and we've got the age group. So the age group and gender are part of the subject index, so identifying the content of the article in terms of the specific age group and gender that's mentioned. You will also notice it doesn't exclude other age groups as well. So because a middle-aged patient or population group is mentioned doesn't mean that other age groups are not cited or indicated in this search. Okay. So we have our articles here. You'll notice also because we've cross-searched them, it also gives us the option to switch between Medline and CINAHL. So if you want to look at Medline results specifically, you can select that under Databases and view the MEDLINE content. Okay. So these are the results here. Now, obviously, because we're looking at the ANI database, so the CINAHL index, which only has about 70 full-text journals, we have this option on the left, which is linked full text. So linked full text provides access to other EBSCOhost content or full text content where it may be available in another EBSCOhost database. If you, it also includes any electronic subscriptions that you get through EBSCO as well. So it could be from Taylor and Francis or Wiley, etc. And that will filter to full text content only. So we just go through some of these steps first before we look at running another search. Okay, so again, if you have access to other versions of CINAHL, like CINAHL Complete, CINAHL Plus the full text, that will bring back, obviously, retrieve more full text records. Likewise, if you subscribe to other or have access to other EBSCOhost databases, you would see more full text content. So I'm not trying to do a thorough literature search on this condition. I'm really trying to illustrate the functionality for EBSCOhost for this particular interface and what you can expect from it. Okay, so we have we've applied some limiters, some filters to this search. You'll notice we've got them recorded in this box. In the first column, we call this the bread box. If you think of the term, the breadcrumb trail, where you're tracking back to how you searched, this is recording, retaining some of those limiters. So these are recorded here. You can also click the cross to remove any of these to rerun the search without those. So we have our results below. Notice the search history, of course, is still displayed here. You may also notice that the search history is displayed in a reverse chronological order. So if you want to display this in a more sequential fashion, click Search ID and hash, and it resorts for you. So you can see here the order. One thing to note about the search history, if you were to edit this and make some changes to it, you can go in, for example, to here to edit, and then you can change some of the limits on this page. It will renumber the search for you. So if it makes sense to remove S3, you wouldn't get S1, S2, S4. It would renumber the set number. So again, that's another plus of this interface. It does renumber, resort the search history for you. Okay. So just to look at our results, obviously we may look to save some, but let's look at the content we have access. So to begin with, if we look at the record itself, you can see here we've got the citation, we've got the abstract, etc. We've also got these images. This is the image quick view feature. So if you want to view or preview content such as this chart, then you can view it online before you actually get into the article itself. You've also got the full text where available. So the HTML full text, PDF full text comes from within an EBSCOhost database. And you can see we've got both formats here. We'll come back to that in a moment, but if you want to go into the detailed record, click on that link. This will give you the bibliographic record for this item. It allows you to link to other articles by the same author. You can link to other articles with the same source, publisher, etc., general information. You have these are the mesh terms, so these are MEDLINE, medical subject headings, and you can link to other articles indexed with those. You see the abstract, etc. If you want to save this reference as it is right now, on the right you have some tools. I've included in the PowerPoint a list of these tools and what they stand for. Obviously we support Google Drive, but we've got the EBSCO folder too. So add to folder simply saves this item to the folder on the top toolbar. Okay, so we'll talk about creating an account in a moment, but this will store items for the duration of the session currently. We can go back to our results and look at this record again. We can print from this page as well, this particular item. We can email it, so if we want to share this with a colleague or a user, then we can forward this. It can come with the links as well to the full text documentation. And you can also change the citation format as well if you need to. There's also a customized version that you can use. Okay. The save option typically works well with Internet Explorer, so that is something, if you use it for Chrome, then it will save it as a web page, not as a text file. So save is really, I would say, recommended for Internet Explorer. You have the cite option here. So this allows you to get the reference style, for example, Harvard, of this particular article. So this is kind of a recommendation, as it were, but we do advise users to always consult library resources, so they should consult your local library service in order to get the definitive reference style that you use locally or regionally or nationally. If you want more detailed information about using Harvard, for example, then click on the link here. Okay, so again, I don't want to go into too much detail about this at this stage. Then we have other options, export, again, that's something which we'll cover in the advanced user session. You can create notes, you can add notes to records here. So if you want to make a note as you're looking at a particular record, then you can enter that here. Okay, and that will store in your folder. Okay, so we'll come back to that as well. You can also print notes as well if you need to. So you can make notes as you're looking at the record, etc. If you prefer to send a link to this item, there's a permalink under Tools. So you can click on that link here. So this is what you should be using. Instead of using the browser URL, which is only for the duration of the session, then you come to the permalink option and you would use this link. You can cut and paste that into an email and forward it to a user, to a colleague, etc. And of course, they would need to authenticate through OpenAthens or through some other means to access this content. Okay, so again, if you were to send it to a non-CINAHL user, for example, someone who does not have access to CINAHL, they would not be able to access this link. Okay, so you would be required to sign in to OpenAthens to access that. Okay, so that's the detailed record or bibliographic record. Obviously, it's quite common for users to access the full text directly when it's available. And we have, in this example, HTML and PDF. So click on that link here. And this opens up the HTML or online web page view for this article. So you can see here with this one, we've got the text, the translation option here. So depending on what languages you speak, etc., you can have this article translated into your preferred language. Okay, so it's that language, English to another language, not vice versa, by the way. But you also have the option to for the text-to-speech software as well. So you can listen to this being read online. You have a choice of accents, by the way, so it can be changed to British. And then you can listen to that online. You can make changes to the highlighting of the text as it's read as well. So this is a great tool for supporting those who are visually impaired. I've also heard that nurses also like to listen to the articles rather than just read them as well. So again, you can customize this feature. Now, obviously, if you're accessing CINAHL centrally, then obviously there are others who will be responsible for configuring this. But if you have some control over this, then obviously you can go into EBSCOadmin and make changes to it. So I don't want to go into too much detail about that back-end functionality. That's something we can talk about at another time. But you can, obviously, as you're looking at this, change the accent here and the settings there. And you can download the MP3 file as well. When you download the MP3 file, by the way, it comes up in another window, depending on how you've got Windows Media, etc., set up on your computer. But it will also designate the time of the files, the duration of the file as well. So you can see how long it would take to listen to this particular article as opposed to reading it. Okay, so that's the HTML. With HTML, you also have the create note option as well. So you can add a note here on the right-hand side, and you have the link here to the article. Okay. Now, of course, if you want the original article in its original format, there's the PDF link. If you wonder why some articles only have one or other format, not both, it's really down to the publisher and what they agreed to provide as far as the format for the full text is concerned. Okay. Again, any questions, please send them through on the chat panel. We'll take some time in a moment to take any questions that there may be or any comments that you have. So here you see the actual article displayed there, and you can download or from the reader toolbar and print from here. And again, you've got the tools menu on the right, on the far column on the right, to print this item or to email it with the attached files. And you can also cite as well. And in this instance, the permalink, when you select that option on the right-hand side, this will bring up the permalink for this PDF page. So the first link we looked at takes you directly to the bibliographic record. This takes you to the actual PDF article. So If there's a problem emailing PDFs for whatever reason, then you can simply, again, cut and paste the permalink URL into your email and forward it to a user, to a recipient, etc., to access that online. Okay, they'll come straight to this page. Of course, there's the download option on the top left toolbar as well, if you wish to download directly from the toolbar there. So that's the full text that you can expect. Okay, so we have those articles there, and you'll notice on the far right here, I've got this column, folder has items. If I click the folder view now, you'll see I've got this item still here. Of course, you may want to go back to your results list and save more references. So if you go back to the results list, you can save them individually by clicking the Add to Folder icon here, or you can save a page of results by clicking Share, and you can save 17 here. So all 17 can be saved, and then these are stored in the folder, which you can also access from the toolbar on the top right. And then you'll see them stored below. Again, you still have access to the full text record through the PDF, HTML links, etc., where those are available. Okay, so you can also go back into your search history just to hide it here from view. Okay, and then you can also save a link to the search as well under share. You can save the link. Okay, so if we go to our folder on the top toolbar, you'll see we've got 17 articles stored here. They're saved. You can obviously select these. You can email these if you want to forward them. But one thing to note when you do that, of course, is that PDFs are treated separately. So again, if you have 17 articles with PDFs, you'll have 17 emails. So you may want to untick this. It will include the current search history as well. And again, you can change the format. So for Harvard. So you can enter your email here. CINAHL search. And then also you can remove these items from the folder after emailing as well. And then you can send. Okay, and that's been confirmed as being sent. And those articles have now gone. Okay, so if I go back to my folder, say for example I wanted to store items beyond the session, then I can just again go in and save these. And I can go back to my folder. And then this time, what I can do here is sign into my EBSCOhost. So the my EBSCOhost folder is essentially the means by which you can store and retrieve articles, searches, etc. So for that, you need to be signed in, which means you need to create an account here. So that will then bring up the sign-in page. So here you can either enter a sign-in. If you have a my EBSCOhost account already, then you could sign in with the username and password. Of course, if you forget your password, you can reset it here. Otherwise, you can click Create One Now to create a new account. So this is not Open Athens. Open Athens will simply take you into EBSCOhost. This is a personal account that you set up yourself. You can see some guidance there about the criteria. And there's a consent form. And if you wonder what we collect at EBSCO, there is information about personal data collection and usage as well. So once you've agreed to that, you create the account, you can then sign in with your new username and password. Okay. So I'm going to go back a step because I know that I've got another account that I signed into. So let me go into here. Let's go back to my folder. And I try, okay, so it's not allowing me to do that right now. So what I might do here, let's see now. It's like I've been using Google Sign-In for the past few months, so that option is not available on this particular page. So I won't be able to sign in there to do that. So what I might do here, I'm going to pause momentarily while I go onto another account and I can talk to you about the other methods of search. In fact, why don't I just stop sharing for now? If there's any questions or comments about this at this stage. Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry, let me just pause there. Let me just stop here a moment. Okay. I'll go back to my screen. Okay. So I'm just going to run another search now, and then just go through some remaining limiters that there are before we begin to conclude. So another way of searching, I mentioned, obviously the way we did it was just simple free text searching, but we can also make use of subject fields as well. So if you go to the CINAHL subject headings here on the top toolbar, you can enter a term. So you can enter, for example, depression, etc., and then you can pick up the subject term here. So you can see here I've got depression, and on this page, okay, so this is the index term. So to identify articles about depression, this is the term that you would use. If you follow this blue line across, you can see it's got several options here. This option to explode includes narrow terms as well. Again, this is something we'll cover in more detail in the advanced session, but this is a means to combine our free text search, which is below, as a keyword. You can see the pink highlight there for this term, and combined with depression, the index term. So if we select both these terms, we may include other terms as well that may be relevant to our search. Then we can combine this search, and you can see in a moment the terms appearing in the center there on the search history. So this is a combination of free text and subject searching. Okay. The advantage of that, of course, it brings up more hits because you're not only looking for the occurrence of the word, you're also looking at the index term, which is really highlighting the content. Okay. So if you did the same thing for exercise, again, you can go to subject headings and you can type in exercise. You can even add physical fitness, for example. And you can see here we've got exercise. We can select this, fitness centers, perhaps physical fitness, etc., and other types of exercise as needed. Okay. And then again, you can combine with your keyword search. So the key thing about this is that you're using two forms of searches: the free text search, which I talked about earlier, looking for the exact match of the terms you enter, and also combining that with the actual subject index term. So what index is used to identify the article's content, essentially. And then you can combine them together in a search. Okay. And then finally, we could look at another example, which is the other element that we were looking at, and that is antidepressant medication. So we go to CINAHL subject headings again. So antidepressants, for example, just type in antidepressants for now and click browse. And then you can see here, the advantage of this, it also tells us what we should be using for this. So the term that is used by CINAHL to identify articles about antidepressants is antidepressive agents. And then you can select these here. Again, choose the option to explode, which will include narrow headings as well. Again, we get into more detail about that as we go to advanced search in a couple of weeks. So we've done this quite quickly. Actually, I'm not including all the terms that I would have done based on my original query, but just to save time here, but just to illustrate the point. So I'm just going to see some chat here, some comments coming through here. So just this one from Lucy. Okay. Okay. Yes. About the folder. If you save something to a folder, will it only remain in the folder during that session? That's right, yes. If you're not signed in, if you do not create a EBSCOhost personal folder account, the items that you store in the folder will disappear if you close the browser or the session times out. Okay, so you need to have an EBSCO account. That is correct. So you need to sign in to EBSCOhost. You need to create an account for that. Okay. Okay. So again, we can just simply select all and combine them. We've got this AND option here, so you can combine using AND and then achieve the results with all three elements. Again, I've not included some of the terms. I'm now using the live NHS interface, so it looks a bit different than what you just saw because of obviously there are different links in place here. So we've switched from the local interface to the NHS one. So you can see here what you'd find here. So essentially it's the same database, but obviously a slightly different setup than what you saw on the Medway one. Okay. But again, you've got some of the features here below. So you've got on the left, on the first column, you've got options to filter. So you can filter by source type, so academic journals, for example. So you can filter out the magazines there. You've got others like subject major heading. So this is where the major focus of the topic is, of the articles are. So for example, depression here. And others like, if you scroll down, publication. So if you're looking at this subject within a specific publication, you can choose from this list here. If you click show more, you can choose more than one option. And then you've got publisher, language. So for example, we've got English here, they will appear. And again, if you come back to our original search query, age and gender are also indicated here. So looking at middle-aged, we've got 40 references there. Okay. So in this example, obviously I've switched directly to CINAHL. So before we looked at CINAHL and MEDLINE, we cross-searched the database with our free-tick search terms. If you're going to use the subject terms, then you're likely to just use the individual database because the subject indexes will differ between CINAHL and MEDLINE. They both come from the National Library of Medicine, but there are some variations. Obviously, CINAHL, I should have said at the outset, is a nursing allied health database, whereas MEDLINE, of course, is biomedical. So the emphasis is slightly different. There is nursing content in MEDLINE, of course, but the focus is slightly different and the indexing is slightly different. Okay. Now, just one more thing to point out regarding CINAHL. This geography option, this filter, when you see this filter, it restricts the country of publication. So although it's got UK and Ireland here or Europe, it doesn't mean that the actual article or the research or the population group relate to that specific territory. So you might find it's a UK or Irish publication. It could be the British Journal of Nursing. It could be the World of Irish Nursing and Midwifery. But the actual research may be carried out in Italy, Russia, Brazil, or some other territory. Okay, so geography filter in CINAHL relates specifically to the country of publication. If you are looking at specific country content, then you'll need to be using the CINAHL subject headings or the medical subject headings for MESH for MEDLINE. Okay. So let's check if there's any more questions here. Okay, thanks, Susie, for your question. It says academic journal by reference. Does it also label systematic reviews? Yes, you can filter by systematic reviews as a publication type. So if I click new search, or you can go to show more under the what we call the date slider, by the way. So if you want to narrow the results by date, you can just drag this across, for example, and release that and filter by year. So below that, you have the show more option. This will open up the search options. And on here, you'll see we've got a variety of limits here. And that includes publication type. So for example, you've got meta-analysis here, practice guidelines, and systematic review here as well. Okay. You can also filter by specific journals such as biomedical, core nursing, etc., peer-reviewed, and so on. And again, you've got age groups also listed here as well. So geographic subset, once again, relates to the country of publication. So UK and Ireland would be UK and Irish publications. So there's a filter for publication type. Okay. There is a more generic filter for research article, which would bring back meta-analyses, systematic reviews, other research as well. Also on this page, again, without going into too much detail, you can exclude MEDLINE records from your search. So if someone wants to see, doesn't want to search on CINAHL, and is also concerned what's indexed in MEDLINE as well, then you can exclude MEDLINE results from here. Okay, so you can see what's in CINAHL uniquely from that option. So you can also get to those options from the home page. So if you click new search here, I'm conscious of the time here, so we're going to wrap up in a moment. If you click new search, you'll see the search options are already open. Okay, and then you can see the variable options there, including, again, publication type. Okay, so if you look at randomized controlled trials or systematic reviews, etc., you can filter accordingly. Okay, so that functionality is there. Okay. And finally, just want to show you then just the search history itself. So if you go to the search history, if you want to save the search history, again, you can resort this in a sequence you did the search. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. in that order. So if you want to save this search for future reference, you can print, by the way, you can print from the screen here. You can print it off. Okay, so if you're running a search for a user, or if you're a user and you're using the search or running the search, you want to share it with one of the librarians, then you can do so by clicking print search history. You can also save the search here. So now, when you are saving a search, if you've not already signed into My EBSCOhost or create an account, it will prompt you to do so. So you do need a My EBSCOhost folder account. You can see this is my folder here in order to save searches. So if you want to store articles beyond the session, you need a personal folder account. If you want to save searches, you need a personal folder account. So I can add the search here. So again, I can put this as a size for now. It's date stamped, so you can see here, 14th October, we're in CINAHL. And then you have the choice. You can save it permanently, so that's indefinitely essentially. Or if you're still working on it, you're going to come back to it within 24 hours, you can save it for a 24-hour period. At this stage, you can also edit the search. You've got the edit action column there to make changes to any of the search queries. So if you spot some errors, mistakes, you want to make changes to it, then you can do so here. Otherwise, you can click Save Search. And then that is confirmed as saved. You click Continue, and you'll find it stored in your folder. You'll see in a moment, I've got quite a lot of searches saved in mine, so you can sort them alphabetically, by the way, or the most recently added as well. Okay, so I can go down to the bottom of my page, and to my second page, as I've got a lot of searches stored here, and you can see this is stored here. So once you've saved your search, you can, of course, edit it again, or you can retrieve it. So since I've run this search on CINAHL, if I go to MEDLINE and rerun this search, it's going to pull back, it's going to bring back results for MEDLINE specifically. So although you save it in a specific database, if you want to rerun it on that database, make sure that you are viewing that database at that time. So of course, if you go back to the interface, you can switch between the two. So for example, I can go from CINAHL to MEDLINE. So I'm now in MEDLINE. So if I retrieved that search from the folder, I would rerun it on MEDLINE. Okay. So just be aware of that. Okay. That may be something you want to do, or it may not be. Also, a couple of other things I've mentioned, you can add more search terms by clicking on the plus sign next to the rows there, although you can add up to 12 rows, but I think most people tend to be satisfied with just the 3 rows there. Okay. So the final thing I wanted to mention is the publications option. So if you want to view what publications are indexed, we saw that earlier when you come into CINAHL MEDLINE, you've also got the publications link on the toolbar. So this will give you the alphabetical listing of publications indexed in MEDLINE, or the equivalent would be for CINAHL. So again, you can run a search here for any of these titles. For example, if you just type in British here, you can see we've got the alphabetical listing. So for example, the British Dental Journal here, British Food Journal, British Heart Journal, etc. So again, that allows you to go to the pages. If we go for a subject, for example, let's go for occupational therapy. We can go for subject or description, and then you can see here we've got various items, including the British Journal of Occupational Therapy. If we click on that link, this will allow us to search within the publication, or you can browse the various issues here and see those in the result list, and they'll be displayed below. Okay. Okay. Just to clarify then, as far as before I take any final questions here, there are obviously you can view the interface in another language if you prefer, and we also have the help menu here, which is for all EBSCOhost databases, so it's CINAHL MEDLINE. Again, some of the features we looked at today, using limiters. Let's see, you scroll further, there's information on using the folder as well. Okay, and we do have tutorials that are associated with these step-by-step instructions. Again, saving searches, instructions on this as well from the help menu. And we also have, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll find there's the EBSCO Connect link. So EBSCO Connect is our portal, if you like, for support information, documentation, further training. And I've actually signed in here, so you'll see so different somewhat. But you've got, let me just sign out here. So typically you'll come to connect.ebsco.com to this page, and then you'll see there's a link to tutorials on here. So just to reassure you, there's lots covered in this session, of course, but we do have tutorials on CINAHL and MEDLINE. So we have the generic EBSCOhost research database tutorials. Of course, we're looking at the EBSCOhost interface. That includes looking at the result list, using the My EBSCOhost folder, etc. So most of these are 2 or 3 minutes long. There's also a PowerPoint associated with this. And in addition to that, we also have the CINAHL specific tutorials as well. So for example, basic searching here is also available. Okay, again, these are present there. So I'm going to stop here. I'll just see if there's any questions at the end of this session. So there are some obviously key slides here that I've included for reference as well. But let me just pause here if there are any questions or comments.